This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so this course is about mean stack. Okay, so why do we use mean stack and what is it? Okay, so before we move into mean stack, okay, let's get into what is web development first. Okay, so there are several e-commerce sites like Amazon, Flipkart. Okay, so that is example of a website, and the person who develops it is obviously called a web developer. Okay, so a very simple example is Amazon. Okay, so software development is different, web development is different. Okay, for example, software development is something called Avast. Okay, yeah, let's keep an antivirus. That is a software. Okay, so web development is completely different. Okay, so there are different types of web development. Okay, so front end, back end, and full stack. And here in this course, we'll be covering full stack as mean stack is a full stack course. Okay, so yeah, and let's keep it very simple. Okay, the whole course we'll keep it very simple, and really sorry for the inconvenience caused as well. Okay? So okay, so front end is something that we visualize, that is the client visualizes, say for whichever we see in the UI. Okay, for example, if you go to amazon.com, okay, we see a lot of things, right? Say men's section, women. Okay, and once we click a button, some data is getting displayed. Okay, everything is a part of front end. Okay, and back end is something which is very different from the front end. Okay, say it says how a web page works. For example, if we click a min option in the Amazon, okay, we don't know what happens in the back end, but we get a list of t-shirts or shirts or whatever it is. So once we click something in the front end, that is just a minute, it was not updated on the Amazon site is still getting loaded. So let us keep this outlook. Okay, so that will be, yeah, okay, fine. So this is a front end or this is a UI. Okay, the front end is seen by the client, and if I click mobiles here, okay, something happens. Okay, but we get the list of mobiles. Okay, so what exactly happens is once we click a button or whatever it is, an API call. Okay, and will be better if I explain with this diagram. Okay, an API call goes to the backend. Okay, and then the backend parses the response, the backend parses the request, and it interacts with the DB or the third party tool, whatever it is, and then we get the return request. Okay, whenever we make a request from the front end, okay, there are a lot of security mechanisms, authorizations, and we pass the request. So there are a lot of things going on there. Okay, for example, request queries, request params. Okay, so we'll be in this course we'll be seeing each and every part. Okay, in a more simple way. So before we move on to mean stack, okay, so what is mean stack? Let's just go through on what is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, and just confirming that everyone are able to hear me right, and my screen is also visible, right? Yeah, thank you. So earlier, if you say just 10 to 15 years back, we all used HTML and CSS for everything. Okay, so it will be like we'll be creating multiple HTML pages. Okay, HTML is hypertext markup language. Okay, how to say, if you have a very basic computing knowledge, okay, you should have gone through HTML. For example, HTML tags, like input, okay, and paragraph tags, creating a table using HTML, and all those things. Okay, if it is not so, then fine, we'll have a session on HTML and CSS as well. Okay, so as I said earlier, we used HTML and CSS, but HTML and CSS, okay, we can only show static content. Okay, so static. So what is static and what is dynamic? Say this is static, okay, because this Amazon.in is a logo and it won't change. Okay, it won't change in the sense it won't change often at least, so it will be a static. Okay, whereas this will change based on the customer. Okay, for example, I have logged in from a location, so it will be, and I have been how to say, set this as my pin location, okay, for delivering of goods. Okay, so this will be the this will be dynamic content, okay, which will this will change according to the customer. Okay, so using HTML and CSS, we can develop only static contents. Okay, the content can't change. So, for example, if I need to add a new image, then what I need to do is I need to go and change the HTML code, add this image, and then deploy it again, or whatever it is. Okay, so this is an uphill task, right? So then came the technologies like JavaScript. Okay, and yeah, before that. So JavaScript is such that is something that it will make the HTML and CSS dynamic. Okay, so HTML and CSS earlier was static, and we use JavaScript, okay, to make this HTML and CSS dynamic. So JavaScript is just a programming or scripting language like Java. That's it. Let's keep it simple. Okay, so now moving on to mean stack web development, and we'll be having a session on JavaScript as well, because before we move into mean stack, we need to learn all these three. So these three are the fundamentals, okay? Because we'll be using the HTML as a template in Angular, okay? So, and we'll be using CSS as well, okay? CSS is for styling HTML. For example, I have created an input button. Okay, button is this is a button. Okay, now I need to color this. Okay, then I use the CSS. Okay, so before we start mean stack, we'll go into HTML and CSS and JavaScript a little bit in detail, and then we'll continue with the mean stack development. Okay. So coming to mean stack, just an overview. Okay, so mean is again mostly how to say, more proficient web application technology. Okay, MERN is other one. Okay, MERN is React. Okay, instead of Angular, we'll be using React. But in this course, we'll be focusing on mean stack. Okay, so YAM stands for MongoDB. Okay, MongoDB is nothing but the database used. Okay, so everyone would have known about SQL. So what is SQL? In SQL, we would have stored the data in the form of tables. Okay, and in records or rows. Okay, here it is this is an object oriented database, whereas we'll be storing instead of table, it will be collections. Okay, and E stands for Express.js. Okay, this is something a Node.js framework. Okay, so what is a framework? Okay, for example, we have JavaScript as a programming language. Okay, JavaScript is a scripting programming language, and using this JavaScript, okay, there will be multiple how to say frameworks developed. Okay, using this JavaScript as a code base. So one among them is Angular, okay, which can be used to develop front-end application UIs. Okay, so say for example, this is an UI, and this can be developed using Angular. Okay, so Angular will be our front end, and Node.js will be our back end. Okay, so Node.js is server side. Okay, and we don't have any access to it. That is, the client won't have any access to it. Okay, so stands for Express. Okay, Express is a framework of Node.js. So what exactly happens is, from Angular, I explained earlier about the front end and back end, right? So we'll be making a request from Angular, it will go to the Node server, okay, and we'll have something called APIs, okay. So there are different types of APIs. We'll discuss all these things, okay, so like get, post, put, delete, okay. So we'll make an API request, and this Express.js, okay, this is a framework, Node.js framework, that will take care of these APIs, okay. And then Mongo is the database. Okay, for example, if I have to pull some data from the database, or if I have to that is store some data into the database. For example, Amazon. If I log into if a new user has registered Amazon, okay, then what exactly happens is that all those users' data will be saved in the database, right? So we'll use one of the HTTP methods, that is post. Okay, and what exactly happens is, from Angular we'll be posting the data, and Node.js handles the request, and Express.js uses the REST APIs, passes the request, and then the MongoDB, the data will get stored in the form of object. Okay, so this is what happens exactly. Okay, clear till now? You guys have any queries? You can ask, because I will be moving on to the tools next. Yes, and you can talk in between. That's not an issue. Hello. Any queries? Or shall I continue?
Yes,
Yeah.
nothing from my side, but sometimes your voices keeps breaking. I'm not sure if it's only me. If it's me, I'll probably check.
Oh, okay. Okay, okay, okay. For others, if there are any concerns. Okay, just let me know when my voice is breaking, okay? So that will be helpful. Okay. Yeah. So I'll move on to tools there. Before I move on to tools, I'll just go on with Jmeter. Okay. So as part of this course, we'll be also covering Jmeter. Okay, so what is GitHub? For example, there are multiple people in the projects. Okay, and we need to push the code to a specific repository. Okay, so we use GitHub, and there are many repository builders other than GitHub. For example, we have something called GitLab and Bitbucket. Okay, but in this course, we'll be using GitHub. Say, for example, if we 4 or 5 are working together, okay, on a project, what I'll be doing is I'll push my own changes to the branch. Okay, I'll explain in detail about branching. Okay, how to push the code, how to pull the code. Okay, for example, if I have made any changes, okay, you need to pull that code. And similarly, if you guys have made any changes, I need to pull the code. So we'll have a walkthrough on the Git commands, how to set up Git in your local environment, okay, and how to create a Git account, okay, and how to manage the repository as well, okay, repository and branching on all those concepts. Okay, so yeah, so this is a sample repository, okay, which I have created for our application. Okay, and um, uh, I won't take any code from the internet, and I'll be going through this course. Okay, we'll do everything from scratch so that you guys also understand as well. Okay, so this is just a simple Angular application which I have just created. That's it. I haven't did anything to this. Okay, so we'll be compiling this together. Okay, so for example, what we'll be doing is once we get into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, what we'll be doing is we'll start with the Angular UI. Okay, we'll create a table. Okay, and then what we'll be doing is we'll make an API request to Node.js, and we'll be pulling the data from the database, and we'll be showing that data in the table. Oh, so this will be the flow of the course. Okay, so again, interaction will be really nice actually. Okay, if you guys can post more questions, that will boost all of us actually. So yeah. So okay, so coming to JIT, okay, and we have some JIT settings as well. For example, once we create a JIT account, okay, we'll be cloning this to our Visual Studio Code. Okay, we'll be cloning the JIT. Okay, so that we can push. Okay, I'll explain Visual Studio Code by the way. Okay, and then you'll get it. Okay, so we need a few tools before we can start this application or project. Okay, the first one is we need to install Node.js. Okay, I'll send you the link once everything is done. Okay, so in this application, we'll be using Node.js 14 or 16. Okay, so we need to install Node.js first. Okay, once we get on the site, okay, so current version is 20. Okay, so we'll be using 14 or 16, and we'll be installing. You should install the MSI installer. Okay, so it will be 64-bit or whatever operating system. Is based on yours. Okay, so we'll be installing the MSI so that we won't be able to set any path. For example, while you're installing Java, we need to go and set the path and environment variables. Okay, so if we install MSI, okay, it will set the path automatically for us. So we don't need to go and do anything additionally. Okay, so once the MSI install is done, okay, what you need to do is we need to open a command prompt, okay, and type something called npm. So npm is a node package manager. Okay, so what it typically does it is the package manager which handles the node. Okay, for example, if I need a chart or if I need anything, okay, for example, if I need to install any third party libraries, okay, then I need to use this npm. So npm is like a Linux command, okay, where we'll be using throughout the node application. Okay, the npm starts the node server. Okay, and npm installs the dependencies which we want. Okay, and all. So that's it. Let's keep it simple. Okay, so and we'll move to a sample Angular project. So this is a sample Angular project which I have created, and we'll be developing this. Okay, so once we install node, okay, we need to install Angular. Okay, Angular is something that we need to install via commands and not via using a setup or a msa installer or whatever it is. We have a set of 4 to 5 commands which we'll be using to install Angular in our application. Once Angular installation is done, okay, we can create a we have a again a command to create a project. Okay, once we create a project, then we'll start building the applications. Okay, so yeah. So Robo 3D, this is similar to SQL Server Management Studio, okay, where we'll be visualizing the database. Okay, we can execute queries, and we can write various types of queries like find, aggregate. Okay, similar to insert in SQL. Okay, and then Notepad and Notepad++. This is just for your reference. Okay, so just to understand or make notes, okay, whatever it is. Okay, GitHub software, I have attached the link. Okay, if required, I'll send. Okay, so and then how to create an account with the GitHub. Okay, you can use your Gmail ID to create an account with the GitHub. Okay, so Visual Studio Code, before I'll just give a walkthrough on this. Okay, so I said, right, something, there is something called source control, where you can collaborate with the Git. Okay, so see here, I have something with I have collaborated with the GitHub such that I can see the course web app. Okay, so this is the repository which is getting pointed. Okay, so I have the main branch sync. This is the branch. Okay, so we'll be using several commands here. So when I created the project, I just made the first push so that you guys understand, and I'll be able to explain what is what. So these are the commands. For example, what exactly happens is, I have added this origin. Okay, say this is the GitHub URL, this is the GitHub repository URL, okay, and then I have configured my email, and then I have committed the code, okay, with the sample message, and then I have pushed the code. That's it. Okay, you need not worry about this. I will elaborate and see each and everything in detail. Okay, so yeah, and before this, I'll just explain the network calls before we wrap up. 1 minute. So once you go to any website, okay, and if you just click inspect, okay, so I'll just tell you what exactly happens. See, if I click bestsellers, okay, and then I click this. There will be some requests going here. Okay, you can see this. Okay, so these are the requests I spoke about. Okay, which is going to the backend or third party. So what are third parties? For example, you make payment to your Amazon website, right? So say for example, you make a credit card payment. Okay, it will go to a third party vendor. Okay, the third party will hold all the rights for that credit card verification or whatever it is. Okay, so that is called a third party. Say once you make a credit card payment, what exactly happens is the request will go to the third party. The third party will validate all the credit card details, CVV number, whatever it is, and then the response will be sent back. So that's how it works. Okay, so it might not be necessarily be database. Okay, it's not only database. So we have interactions with third party tools as well as database. Okay, so yeah, so how to track a request? Okay, now I can see. Okay, so you can see this request, right? Let me pick this one, anything. Okay, so let's go into something called header. So this is what I said, API. Okay, so this is the API which will be configured in the Node.js server. So this is just for an example. Amazon is using, I'm not sure what Amazon is using. Okay, so this is just for an example. So this is the API which will be configured in the Node.js server. Okay, and if you open this API, to put it in simple words, if you open this API, there will be calls to the third-party servers if required, or there will be calls to the database. Okay, in to push either to push the request or to get something. Okay, for example, this is a get request. Okay, whereas they have posted something. Okay, they have posted a payload. Okay, say what exactly happens is in this request we have something called shoe bag. Okay, so there will be a request parameters, a request payload that will be sent. Okay, to differentiate, say to differentiate between men, women. Okay, so there will be a parameter that will be sent in the request, say men and t-shirts, and the database will pull the records which has men and t-shirt. This is a simple way of understanding. Okay, and then here the response will be null, just for the security purposes. Okay, so you won't be able to see the response, but in the course, once we get into the code, I'll be showing all the each and every request response and how the code exactly works and whatever it is. Okay, so we'll be coding everything very lively out here. Okay, so we'll start the application from scratch and we'll be developing it. Okay, so guys, you can maybe post your queries if you have any. If you have any queries, guys, on the session, on what is what. If you need even more explanation, I can give it. Post timing, I guess 9 to 10. Maybe you can confirm it in the group. 9 to 10 p.m. IST.
So everything will be from the scratch, or is there any prerequisites that you're expecting us to understand?
No, we'll be having a session on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so everything will be from scratch. What I need you guys to do is just install the softwares and keep. Okay, so that it will be easier for you guys. There's nothing called interview questions, guys. Okay, so this is what I repeatedly tell. Okay, so whatever you learn here, you're going to apply. That's it. So if you want, I'll give the basic interview questions, which will be asked, which is usually asked. Okay, but if you just fulfill this course, okay, you'll be able to crack an interview. I guarantee you that. Okay, but it's completely based on your interest. Say for example, we are developing this application together. Okay, I'll be showing this, showing how to code and what to do. Okay, how to create the UI. Okay, so you should just create the UI. Okay, and you should be posting the questions on the next day. So that's the way we can improve. Okay, so interview questions I'll be sharing if you need. That's not an issue at all. So what are the frequent questions that will be asked on Angular, Node.js, JavaScript? Okay, and JavaScript perspective, I'll cover everything if you want. We'll be having a session maybe on the interview as well, so that won't be a problem. Okay, so to deal with all the interview questions which you have. Okay, and I'll maybe share the template, share the interview questions, and I'll explain each and everything. That's not an issue. I'm not sure,
And
guys. Okay, so just a minute, Aditi. Just
uh,
hold on. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah.
So course days, I'm not sure. Okay, so it will be you can maybe ask in the group. Recordings. This session is recorded. Okay, we'll be sharing it either via mail. Okay, or we'll be putting the recording in the drive. Yeah, Aditi, you can.
So project will be live means what? It's a real-time project.
Real-time project in the sense, I don't get it. Okay, so what you'll be doing
Means
is
uh, in a Here it says the live project, live training and live project. So what does
Yeah.
that mean?
So what we'll be doing is we'll be creating the UI components. Okay. So what kind of project you need? So that will help me. Say for example, you need something called something like a e-commerce website or whatever it is. It's upon your ask. So that yeah. So live project in the sense what we'll be doing is we'll be creating UI components. Okay. So this will not be in production, right? So what is called live is when many clients or many customers use. Okay, so this is something which we develop for our training. Okay, so what you can do is you can download this project, host this, how to say, you can run this application and do whatever you want. Okay, so this will be that kind of application. Okay, you can maybe keep it as a live project as well. That's not an issue. So yeah, we'll be creating those UI components like tables, buttons, and then we'll add a form. Say, for example, consider login registration website. Once I log in, I'll go into the next screen. Okay, I'll be seeing a dashboard with a few charts, with a few tables. Okay, and I'll be doing a sorting or a pagination to the tables. And then we'll be getting the data from the database and we'll be populating that particular data in the table. So that's how the course will be. Okay, so whatever project it may be, you need not worry. Okay, you need to be you will be more proficient in Angular or Node and Mongo. So I can guarantee that. And let's see one more question in the chat. I am new to the I am new to development. Will I be able to learn and work for projects? So guys, say for example, I'm not going to start with mean stack just like that. Okay, so I'll be giving some how to say, just a little bit of knowledge on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then we'll be coding slowly. Okay, let's start it with how to say, really slowly. For example, first I'll just ask you to write. I'll help you to write a reverse string. For example, say Aditi, reverse of Aditi. Okay, so just let's start like that. Okay, slowly, how to code. Okay, and then let's get into those. How to say, a proper UI way. Okay, let's start to code first. Okay, so let's understand coding. What is coding? Why do we do that? Okay, basics of HTML, CSS. So what is HTML? What is a template? And then we'll move on. So that's not an issue. Okay, and you should be able to work in any mean stack project. Okay, once you get, again, it depends on your interest, and it's just not about 9 to 10 p.m. here. Okay, so it's about how do you learn after that. Once I push the code, you need to try new things the next day. For example, say I develop an input. Okay, I have an input box, and then what you need to do is you need to enhance it more. So that's how it'll you will get progress. Okay, so it completely depends on the interest, and you need to pose more questions as well. Okay, so posing more questions, making it interactive will be good. Okay, and in my sessions at least, you can mute your mic. Sorry, you can unmute your mic. Okay, and ask your queries. That's not a concern for me at all. You need not type the query in chat. So whatever it is, you can speak out. Any other queries, guys? Do you need any other information apart from this? And are you clear about how the course is designed? Yes, you can speak out. Yeah, sure. We'll be following the template. As I said, first we'll be covering HTML, and then we'll be moving on to Angular. So the next week we'll be moving on to Angular, and then after we get a little bit proficient in Angular. So what is what? And then we'll move on to Node.js, okay, develop some APIs, and then finally we'll move on to MongoDB. So that will be the flow. Okay. Okay, guys. Spring Boot is a very good technology. Okay, so using Angular with, I can say I have seen many projects use Angular or React with Spring Boot as a backend. Okay, and they use MySQL or MongoDB as the database. So here the only concern is one technology is JavaScript and the other technology will be based on Java. So that's the issue. Okay, as far as I see. So Angular and React are the topmost frameworks that are used. Okay, for UIs, no doubts in that. And we have a lot more advantages in Node.js. Okay, so Node.js is something asynchronous. Okay, so uh, if you want, I'll just give a walkthrough on what is synchronous and what is asynchronous. Just let me know if you are okay. I'll just proceed. So synchronous is such that, okay, so I have 15 lines of code. Okay. Only if the first two, 3 lines, 4 lines are executed, then only the sixth class seventh line will get executed. It will be in a more sequential order. For example, I am reading a file, okay, from the directory. I have a text file in my D folder. Just keep it simple. I have a text file in my D folder and I'm reading it via code. Okay. So what Java does it? Java or Spring Boot does it? It makes a synchronous call. Only if the file operation is complete, okay, then only it will move to the next part. Okay, we can make the Spring Boot asynchronous, but it's not asynchronous by default. Okay, so what is asynchronous? So Node.js is asynchronous. That is, I'll perform one file operation apart. I can perform one file operation apart, and I can write to a DB separately. So, say for example, I am reading a file from the folder, okay, and I am submitting that is I am storing the registration form in the database. Okay, so these two can be executed parallelly. Okay, it defaults by default it executes parallelly. So in order to make Node.js wait, there are few commands. Okay, like there are few methodologies like async await. Okay, we'll be discussing this in detail. But synchronous is what synchronous is, the code will be executing a sequential order. That is, only if the operation is completed, we move towards the next step. Okay. So in asynchronous, it won't wait for anything. The second operation won't wait for the first operation. It will just execute it. It will keep on executing. Okay. So in order to make that, for example, I need to store a data once I receive the data from the file. So that's the requirement. Then I have to make that code wait. So I'll be using something called await. Okay, so this is just an example on Node.js. So on Node.js is comparatively faster than any backend frameworks. Maybe we can compare it with Python, but Python mostly we use it in AI or whatever it is. Okay, we use more in the AI angle. Okay, so Node.js is primarily for web development. Okay, and it's a server side for developing server side applications, and it is very fast actually. Any questions, guys? Aditi, Jaishankar, Bharat, anyone? So if we are good, we can then drop off. Is it fine? Sure, even others are facing the same audio issue, or how it is? Bharat, Aditi.
I don't have any issue. It's clear for me.
Okay, okay, then thanks a lot. Okay, thanks a lot for your time. Okay, yeah. Okay, let me stop the recording. No, you can ping that in the group. Okay, for all the queries. Okay, yeah.